All right, in this video we're going to look at shifting a sine graph vertically. Now this assumes that you're comfortable working with graphing basically something in this form right here where we have a change in period and a change in amplitude. And what we're going to do now is we're going to add one more component onto that, which is going to be this adding some value or subtracting if it's negative onto a sine omega x. And that's going to result in a vertical shift. It's going to shift the graph up or down. Okay, so hopefully you feel comfortable graphing this bit right here. And then you're going to have to shift it down 1 unit because of this -1 right here. Now, this takes a little bit of planning. I would encourage you to go ahead and graph maybe lightly in pencil or a different color the function 3 sine -2x, and then you can graph in a more permanent color, whatever that would be, shifted down 1. So let's go through this. First thing I'm going to want to do is look at the period and then the amplitude, and then we'll worry about shifting. So recall the period is found by doing 2 pi over omega. Let's make this a little thinner. Period equals 2 pi over omega. So I notice here my omega value is -2. I really want that to be positive. So what I want to do here is use my even-odd properties. Since sine is an odd function, the sine of the opposite of something is the same as the opposite of the sine of that thing. So I'm going to rewrite this using the odd property. I'm going to rewrite my function taking out that negative value. It's going to be -3 sine 2x minus 1. Okay, so my omega value here is 2 then. Okay, so if I divide by 2, I said, I can get my period, which is going to be pi. Okay, great. Now let's check out my amplitude. My amplitude is the absolute value of my a value, which in this case is -3. So absolute value of -3 is my amplitude, which is 3. Now the negative is going to make the sine graph flip over. Okay, let's see if we can put this together, maybe with a pencil. So my sine usually starts at 1. If my amplitude is, or sorry, my sine starts at 0. Sorry, my sine starts at 0 and then usually goes up to 1. But with my amplitude being 3 and this negative here, it's going to go down to -3, 1/4 of the way through the period, come back to 0 halfway through the period, go up to 3, 3/4 of the way through the period, and then finish back at 0. So my period is pi. That's an important thing to keep in mind here. All right, so we're going to start at 0. I need to be back at 0 before when I get to pi units. Halfway between the start and the finish of the period, I'm going to be back at 0. And then 1/4 of the way through the period, in this case, I'm going to be at my minimum because we're flipped over. Now, we need to figure out our scale here, right? We haven't figured out our scale. Is this worth 1, 2, 3? And we need to keep in mind the fact we're going to be shifting this down 1. So if I go make this 3 and then I have to shift it down 1, I'm still going to have enough room on this graph. So I feel pretty good about just leaving this at 1, 2, 3. The scale isn't given, so we can make it whatever we want. And we want to make sure our graph fits. So we got to think ahead a little bit. Alrighty. So this is going to go down to -3. And then 3/4 of the way through the period, it's going to be up at its maximum, which is +3. Now I'm going to use a little, let's see if let me put in some more points. let's make another period. So this goes, now it's going to go back down, back to 0, back up, back to 0. Okay, we could do the negative side, but just for the sake of not using too much time, I'm going to use this little pencil tool I have. So I'm kind of trying to lightly sketch this sine graph, okay? That's pretty good so far. Now I'm going to have to take this graph and shift it down 1 to get my answer. So let's do something a little, let's do purple. Okay, so now this shifting down 1, I'm going to take all these points and shift them down 1. Down 1. Down 1. Down. Down. Okay, and then I'll connect these, and this will be my graph. So I kind of like drawing, or at least really working hard to visualize the graph before it's shifted. Oh, I'm sorry about that. This is a little, here, let me see if I can not talk while I'm drawing, maybe get a little bit better. Not the most beautiful graph there. There, I fixed it up a little bit. If you wanted to go back and erase your pencil part, you could, but you can just leave it in there as a preliminary step to your final result. We probably should put arrows on here too. Here we go. Arrow, arrow. That goes forever.